Chosen one, why does it feel like you're dying while you're still breathing? Why do you wake up every morning feeling like a stranger in your own life? Why, after 70, 80, 90 years on this earth, does your soul still ache for something you can't name? Stop, right where you are. Stop scrolling. Stop pretending this is just another video. Chosen one. Heaven just intercepted your timeline. 3 minutes ago, you thought you were randomly browsing YouTube. But there are no accidents in God's kingdom. Your finger didn't slip. Your algorithm didn't glitch. 2 angels have been circling your address for 72 hours, waiting for this exact moment when your desperation would finally crack open enough to receive what they've been carrying. This isn't a message. This is a window, and it closes in 21 minutes. You feel it, don't you? That strange heaviness settling over your chest right now. That's not anxiety. That's not your medication wearing off. You're being spiritually sedated. God is about to perform emergency surgery on your soul, and He needs you completely still. You're not tired. You're being positioned. You're not depressed. You're being prepared. What you've been calling loneliness, that's isolation by divine design. What you've been calling forgotten, that's hidden by heaven's hand. For months now, maybe years, you've felt like you're waiting for something, like you're running out of time, like you've missed your moment. But what if I told you that feeling isn't desperation? Is it recognition? Your spirit recognizes that your final assignment is about to be revealed. Before we go deeper into this sacred interruption, I want to pause and honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving. You're sowing seeds into a harvest that will feed hungry souls across this nation. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. But listen carefully. There's something the angels brought that your mind can't process yet. Something your heart has been crying out for in the middle of those sleepless nights when you whisper to God, "What am I still here for?" The clock in heaven isn't measured in seconds, it's measured in surrender. And 21 minutes from now, either you'll understand why you survived everything you survived, or this window closes. And you'll spend your remaining years wondering what if. If something in your spirit is already stirring, if your chest feels like it's vibrating with recognition, type "I'm here" in the comments. That's not a comment, that's a covenant. That's you telling heaven, I'm ready to receive what I've been waiting for my entire life. The angels are waiting. The scroll is sealed. And your name is written on both. But first, you need to understand why you felt like a stranger on this earth for 9 decades. Why have you spent the last 40 years feeling like you're living someone else's life? Why does every victory feel hollow, every blessing feel borrowed, every prayer feel like it's bouncing off heaven's ceiling? Why, after decades of faithful service, do you still wake up at 3 a.m. with an ache in your chest that no doctor can diagnose and no medication can cure? Here's the truth that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your spiritual journey. You haven't been forgotten by God. You've been strategically positioned by heaven for this exact moment in human history. Listen to me carefully, dear one. That restlessness churning in your spirit isn't spiritual ADHD, that's divine dissatisfaction. That feeling that something monumental is about to happen, that's not wishful thinking, that's prophetic recognition. Your soul is picking up frequencies from the throne room, and what you're sensing is absolutely real. God doesn't measure time in seconds, minutes, or years. He measures time in surrender. And right now, this very moment, as you're hearing my voice, the spiritual clock in heaven has been set to 21 minutes. Not because God is impatient, but because what's about to be released in your life is so powerful, so transformative, that it requires immediate response. You see, 3 days ago, something unprecedented happened in the courts of heaven. The Father looked at your file, yes, He has one with your name on it, and He said 7 words that shook the foundations of eternity. It's time to deploy the reinforcements. 2 angels received their marching orders. Not cherubim singing songs, not seraphim offering worship. Warriors, commissioned with a mission so urgent that they've been hovering over your address for 72 hours, waiting for this divine appointment when your heart would finally be desperate enough to receive what they've been carrying. The first angel carries a sword. Not the kind that wounds, the kind that cuts away everything that isn't you. This is the angel of deliverance, and his blade has been sharpened on the altar of your tears. Every night you've cried out, "God, I can't take this anymore." You are actually whetting the edge of his weapon. He's here to sever every chain you can see and demolish every prison you can't. The second angel carries a scroll. This is the angel of direction, and what's written on that parchment will redirect the next chapter of your life so dramatically that your own children won't recognize who you become. But here's the mystery that will grip your soul. The scroll is sealed. 7 seals of divine timing, and it cannot be opened until one word falls from your lips. Their wings are not flapping in confusion like birds caught in a storm. They're standing absolutely still, perfect, majestic, terrifying stillness, waiting for one word from you. One word that will unlock what heaven has been preparing since the day you first whispered, "God, surely there has to be more than this." But I need to address something that's been eating at your spirit for years, maybe decades. You've sat in church pews for 40, 50, 60 years. You've tithed faithfully. You've served on committees. You've sung in choirs. You've raised children in the fear of the Lord, and yet something still feels unfinished, doesn't it? You look around at younger believers who seem to walk in such confidence, such clarity about their calling, and you whisper to yourself, "Why do I still feel invisible? Why, after all these years of faithfulness, do I still feel like I'm on the outside looking in at God's real plan?" Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. That feeling of incompleteness isn't evidence that you failed. It's evidence that you're carrying something so significant that hell has been working overtime to keep it buried. Your spiritual restlessness isn't a character flaw, it's a divine alarm clock. Think about Moses, 80 years old when the burning bush interrupted his ordinary Tuesday afternoon. 80. He'd spent 4 decades in Pharaoh's palace thinking he was called to greatness, then 4 decades in the wilderness thinking he'd missed it entirely. But God was never late. God was preparing a deliverer who would need every year of palace training and every year of desert humility to handle what was coming. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." But here's what most people miss. Seasons don't change gradually in God's kingdom. They shift suddenly, dramatically. One moment Moses is herding sheep, the next moment he's commanding Pharaoh. One moment Hannah is barren, the next moment she's holding Samuel. One moment David is dodging spears in Saul's court, the next moment he's wearing the crown. Your season is shifting right now. As these words penetrate your spirit, as recognition floods your consciousness, the spiritual atmosphere around your life is being reconfigured by angelic hands. But here's the weight that should grip your heart with holy urgency. There's something they brought that heaven won't force upon you. Free will is sacred, even in divine intervention. The sword cannot cut until you say yes. The scroll cannot be unsealed until you surrender your timeline to his timing. And you have 21 minutes to respond. Why 21? Because 21 is the biblical number of exceeding sinfulness being overcome by divine grace. It's the number that represents the completion of rebellion and the beginning of restoration. Your rebellion isn't against God, it's been against believing that he still has something magnificent planned for the final chapters of your life. The clock isn't ticking because God is impatient. The clock is ticking because what's written on that scroll is so time-sensitive, so strategically important to his end-time purposes, that delay could cost not just your breakthrough, but the breakthrough of everyone your life is destined to touch. Right now, someone 3 states away is drowning in despair, and your testimony is their lifeline. Right now, someone in your own neighborhood has given up on God entirely, and your transformation is the proof they need that miracles still happen. Right now, your own grandchildren are watching your life, wondering if faith is real or just a childhood fairy tale. The angels are not leaving. They're not going to visit the next house on the street. They're stationed here, over your life, carrying what you've been praying for without even knowing you were praying for it. But the seal on that scroll grows stronger with every minute of hesitation. And once these 21 minutes expire, this divine window closes, and you'll spend your remaining years with one haunting question echoing in your soul. What could have been if I had just said yes? Why does your body feel like it's moving through molasses when your spirit is screaming to run? Why do simple tasks that used to take minutes now drain you for hours? Why does everyone around you seem to be living at normal speed while you feel like you're underwater, watching life happen through thick glass? Dear chosen one, what if I told you that what you've been calling exhaustion isn't exhaustion at all? For the past 18 months, maybe longer, you've felt it creeping in, that bone-deep weariness that 8 hours of sleep can't touch. That fog that settles over your mind when you're trying to remember why you walked into a room. That crushing weight that presses down on your chest when you wake up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is what the end feels like. Your children look at you with worried eyes. Mom, are you okay? Dad, maybe you should see the doctor. They whisper in the kitchen after Sunday dinner, thinking you can't hear. I'm worried about them. They're not themselves anymore. And you lie there in your bed, wondering if they're right. Wondering if the person you used to be has just disappeared. But listen to me very carefully, beloved. You're not disappearing, you're being repositioned. Turn with me to Daniel chapter 10. The prophet Daniel receives a vision so powerful, so overwhelming, that his body simply cannot handle the encounter. Verse 8 records his words, I retained no strength. My vigor turned to frailty in me, and I retained no strength. The very presence of heaven's messenger leaves Daniel paralyzed, helpless, unable to function in his natural strength. Did God abandon Daniel at that moment? Did the angel walk away disgusted by Daniel's weakness? Number. The opposite happened. The angel reached down, touched Daniel, and said the words that will change everything about how you see your current condition. O man greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto you. Be strong. Greatly beloved. That's what heaven calls someone who's been rendered helpless by divine encounter. You're not tired, dear one. You're under divine anesthesia. God is shutting down your old operating system because what he's about to download into your spirit would crash the version of you that was running on human strength, human wisdom, human energy. Think about it. When a surgeon operates, what's the first thing they do? They put you under. They stop your conscious mind from interfering with the procedure. And that's exactly what the Almighty is doing to you right now. He's administering spiritual sedation because the surgery he's about to perform on your soul requires complete stillness. You raised children who broke your heart and mended it again. You built churches, served on committees, organized potlucks, taught Sunday school for 43 years. You tithed when the bank account was crying, volunteered when your own schedule was screaming, gave and gave and gave until giving became your identity. You were the backbone, the reliable one, the person everyone called when they needed something done right. And yet now you sit in those same church pews feeling invisible. The new pastor doesn't know your name. The young families rush past you in the lobby with barely a nod. The ministries you once led have moved on without you. You watch the announcement slides scrolling past, seeing new programs, new initiatives, new everything, and you wonder, has heaven moved on without me too? Here's what's really happening, chosen one. Here's the truth that will shatter every lie you've been believing about your current season. You weren't exhausted. You were being positioned for holy surgery. For 7 decades, you've been carrying weight that was never meant for your shoulders. Generational curses disguised as family traditions, religious performance masquerading as a relationship, people-pleasing patterns that drained your soul while feeding your ego. God has been watching you run yourself ragged, trying to earn what he freely gave, trying to prove what he already proclaimed, trying to become what he already called you. And now, in this season that feels like decline, he's saying, enough. Lie still. Let me remove what doesn't belong and install what you've always needed. This is not burnout, beloved. This is divine interruption. That heaviness in your chest isn't depression settling in for the winter of your years. It's the weight of glory preparing to descend. That fog in your mind isn't dementia knocking at your door. It's divine sedation protecting you from overthinking what only faith can receive. That weakness in your bones isn't age catching up with you. It's supernatural strength being downloaded while your natural strength is offline. The enemy has been whispering lies in your ear for months. You're done. You're too old. You've missed your moment. God's moved on to younger vessels. But those aren't heaven's thoughts about you. Those are hell's desperate attempts to convince you to check out before your greatest chapter begins. Listen to the prophet Isaiah in chapter 40, verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Did you catch that? They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Not maintain it, not manage it, not ration what's left. Renew it. Like a software update that makes an old phone faster than when it was new. Like a renovation that makes a house more beautiful than its original design. You're not winding down. You're being wound up for something that requires divine energy, not human effort. But here's the part that might shock you. This sedation has an expiration time. This divine anesthesia won't last forever. There's a moment coming, and it's closer than you think, when the surgery will be complete, when the downloading will be finished, when the old operating system will be fully replaced with heaven's software. And when you wake up from this spiritual procedure, you won't just feel different. You'll function differently. You'll see different things. You'll speak differently. Because the same God who breathed life into Adam's nostrils is about to breathe fresh purpose into your tired bones. If you felt like your body is slowing down, but your spirit is waking up, if there's something stirring in your chest right now that recognizes the truth of these words, type, God, I surrender to stillness. Because the angels standing over your spiritual operating table are holding instruments you can't see, carrying healing you can't imagine, preparing to unlock gifts you forgot you had. But what they're holding in their hands will determine whether you wake up as the same person who went under, or as someone this world has never seen before. You've been staring at this screen for 12 minutes now, and something inside your chest won't let you look away. That's because what I'm about to reveal will explain every single moment of confusion, every night of tears, every decade of wondering why your life felt like a war zone when everyone else seemed to be living in peace. Listen to me, chosen one. The two angels standing in your room right now didn't come with harps and halos. They came with weapons. One carries a sword that cuts deeper than any earthly blade. The other holds a scroll that contains coordinates to a future you can't even imagine. But here's what's going to shock you to your core. They've been waiting 70 years for you to be desperate enough to receive what they're carrying. The first angel, his name is Uriel, and his sword isn't made of steel. It's forged from the very breath of God, and it doesn't wound flesh. It amputates lies. Right now, as I speak these words, he's positioning that blade over chains you didn't even know were there. Invisible shackles that have been wrapped around your identity since you were 7 years old, sitting in that Sunday school classroom, listening to someone tell you that children should be seen and not heard. He doesn't comfort your lies. He cuts them off. That voice that whispers, "You missed it?" Severed. That thought that haunts you at 3 a.m. saying, "You're too old." Demolished. That lie that's been echoing in your mind for 3 decades whispering, "You're too late." Annihilated. But here's what's going to shake you to your very foundation. Those weren't your thoughts. They were never your thoughts. They were demonic assignments planted in your consciousness when you were still young enough to believe anything an adult told you. And for 80 years, you've been living someone else's limitations. Do you remember being 8 years old and absolutely knowing that you were meant for something extraordinary? Do you remember that fire in your belly that made you believe you could change the world? What happened to that child? Let me tell you what happened. The world taught you to be realistic. They taught you to settle. They taught you that dreams are for young people and wisdom means accepting less. But God never taught you that. Man taught you that. The sword isn't just cutting lies, beloved. It's cutting time itself. Because in God's economy, time doesn't flow forward, it flows upward. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. 80. Abraham was 99 when God renewed his covenant. 99. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your activation code. Every wrinkle on your face is a line of wisdom. Every grey hair is a crown of glory. Every scar on your heart is proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. The enemy didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because he saw what God placed inside you before you were even born. The second angel. Michael is not saying a word. He's just standing there, holding a scroll sealed with heaven's own wax. But I can see it in his eyes. This isn't just any scroll. This contains your specific assignment, your exact coordinates, your divine GPS for the final chapter of your life. But here's what's going to blow your mind. It has your name written on it, not your birth name, your eternal name, the name God calls you when no one else is listening. It has your city, the exact address where your ministry will explode. It might be your living room. It might be the grocery store checkout line. It might be that park bench where you feed the pigeons every Tuesday. But it's written there, in handwriting that makes the Constitution look like chicken scratch. And it has your assignment, not your job, not your hobby, your assignment. The thing you were sent to this earth to accomplish. The reason you survived the heart attack in '97. The reason you made it through the depression of 2008. The reason you're still breathing when 3 of your closest friends have already gone home. But here's the mystery that's been driving me to my knees in prayer for the last 3 days that scroll is sealed. Revelation 5:1 tells us about a scroll written on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. But your scroll only has 1 seal, and it's not held closed by wax or ribbon. It's held closed by one word you haven't spoken yet. The word is yes. Heaven is not waiting for your perfection. It's waiting for your permission. You've been praying for a breakthrough for decades, haven't you? You've been asking God to open doors, to move mountains, to change your circumstances. But what if I told you that God has been waiting for you to stop asking and start accepting? What if the breakthrough isn't coming to you? What if you need to step into it? That scroll contains the answer to every prayer you've prayed in the darkness, every tear you've cried over children who stopped calling, every night you've wondered if your life mattered, every moment you felt invisible in a world that worships youth. But it won't open until you give heaven permission to rewrite the final chapters of your story. I can see some of you shaking your heads right now. I'm 83 years old. My time is over. God's done with people like me. Stop right there. That's not your voice talking. That's the same lie the sword just cut off someone else 10 minutes ago. 2 Corinthians 5:17 declares, "If anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here." Did you catch that? If anyone. Not if anyone is young. Not if anyone is perfect. If anwini. Your birth certificate is not your limitation. Your medical chart is not your ceiling. Your past failures are not your future forecast. What's written on that scroll has the power to make your remaining years more impactful than all your previous years combined. It contains assignments that will echo into eternity. It holds conversations that will save marriages. It carries prayers that will break generational curses. It houses wisdom that will redirect bloodlines. But 21 minutes is almost up. And I need you to understand something that's going to cut like a surgeon's scalpel. This window doesn't stay open forever. Divine appointments have divine timing. When God says now, He means now. When heaven opens a door, it's not a revolving door. It's a specific portal for a specific person at a specific moment. The angels aren't going to stand in your living room indefinitely. The sword won't stay sharp forever if it's not used. The scroll won't remain sealed if it's not claimed. And your name, your beautiful, eternal name, won't wait for you to feel ready. Ready is a feeling. Chosen is a fact. You didn't click on this video by accident. Your finger didn't slip. Your Wi-Fi didn't glitch. You were summoned, hand-picked. selected from among millions of seniors who are settling for lesser things, accepting smaller dreams, believing the lie that their season is over. But your season isn't over. Your season is shifting from survival to revival, from existing to impacting, from wondering if you matter to knowing why you were preserved. The question that will determine your entire destiny is this: will you speak the word that breaks the seal, or will you let this moment pass like all the others? Because what I'm about to show you next will reveal exactly why you felt like a stranger on this earth for 9 decades, and why that feeling was never meant to be your end in it, was meant to be your beginning. Dear chosen one, I need you to stop pretending that everything is fine. Stop wearing that mask you've perfected over 8 decades of smiling when your soul was screaming. Because what I'm about to say is going to shatter every lie you've told yourself about why your life has felt like a constant battle. You survived the war, but you never healed from the aftermath. I'm not just talking about World War II, Korea, or Vietnam, though many of you carry those scars too. I'm talking about the war that's been raging in your spirit since you were 7 years old. The war against your identity, the war against your worth, the war against the voice inside you that whispered, you were made for more than this. You came home from the battlefield of your youth, took off the uniform of your dreams, and put on the armor of survival. You learned to function with shrapnel in your soul. You mastered the art of walking wounded, while everyone around you celebrated your strength. But strength was never supposed to be your prison, beloved. It was supposed to be your platform. You raised generations while burying your own dreams. How many midnight hours did you spend rocking crying babies while your own heart wept for the songs you never sang? How many school plays did you attend, applauding your children's performances while the performer inside you slowly suffocated? How many times did you say, maybe next year, to the calling that burned in your chest, until next year became next decade, and next decade became never? The Bible tells us in Isaiah 54:1, sing, barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who were never in labor. But what about the woman who bore children but never bore her calling? What about the man who fathered a family but never fathered his purpose? You gave birth to everyone else's future, while your own remained stillborn in your spirit. And now you sit in houses that echo with memories instead of possibilities. The grandchildren visit twice a year, the phone calls come once a month. The world has moved on to TikTok and Instagram, while you're still trying to figure out how to unmute yourself on Zoom. You feel obsolete in a digital age that worships youth and dismisses wisdom. You watch 20-somethings on YouTube, teaching life lessons they haven't lived, getting millions of views while your decades of hard-earned wisdom sit silent in your living room. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. Here's what's making the angels weep as they hover over your house. You think you're too late. You think you missed it. You think God's done with people like you. You've outlived your husband of 53 years. You've buried your best friend, your siblings, sometimes even your own children. Every funeral you attend feels like another piece of your world disappearing. Every empty chair at your dinner table is a reminder that you're running out of time and running out of people who remember your story. The guilt eats at you, doesn't it? The guilt over the years you wasted being angry at your mother. The guilt over the harsh words you spoke to your father before he passed. The guilt over the dreams you abandoned, the chances you didn't take, the I love yous you never said. 2 Corinthians 7:10 tells us, godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret, but worldly sorrow brings death. You've been drowning in worldly sorrow, the kind that whispers, if only, if only, if only. But what if I told you that every single regret, every buried dream, every moment you thought was wasted was actually being collected by heaven? What if God has been saving it all, the tears, the dreams, the unused, gift storing them up for this very moment? Listen to me, precious soul. You weren't waiting for God. God was waiting for your voice. For decades you've been saying, God, speak to me. God, show me what to do. God, give me a sign. But he's been saying, child, I gave you a voice. I gave you a story. I gave you wisdom earned through fire. When are you going to use it? This isn't about your next breath. It's about your next yes. You think because you're 85, 75, 95 that your season is over. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation out of bondage. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at God's promise and then gave birth to nations. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your wrinkles aren't signs of decay, they're etchings of wisdom. Your slower pace isn't a weakness, it's the measured walk of someone who knows where they're going. But the enemy has been whispering lies in your ear for decades. You're too old. Your time has passed. Nobody wants to hear from someone your age. You should just be grateful for what you have and fade quietly into the background. Those are lies from the pit of hell. You are not discarded, you are deployed. Right now, there's a young mother 3 blocks from your house who's on the verge of giving up. She needs to hear from someone who raised children when there were no parenting books, no Google searches, no support groups, just faith and instinct and the grace of God. Right now, there's a middle-aged man in your neighborhood who's facing financial ruin. He needs to hear from someone who lived through the Great Depression, who knows what it means to make a dollar stretch, who understands that poverty is temporary but character is eternal. Right now, there's a teenager in your community who's drowning in depression and suicidal thoughts. They need to hear from someone who's walked through the valley of the shadow of death and lived to testify that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The scroll that the angel is carrying isn't a retirement plan, it's a deployment order. But here's what I need you to understand with crystal clarity. This moment right now is your inflection point. This is where you either step into the authority that pain and experience have earned you, or you let fear convince you to take your voice to the grave. The angels didn't come to comfort you in your retirement. They came to commission you for your greatest assignment. Jeremiah 1-7 records God's words. Do not say, "I am too young." You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. But I'm here to tell you tonight, do not say, "I am too old." You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Your voice carries authority that a 20-year-old will never have. You've earned the right to speak about marriage because you've been married for 60 years. You've earned the right to speak about parenting because you raised children without smartphones to distract them. You've earned the right to speak about faith because yours has been tested by fire and proven genuine. If this is your turning point, if something in your spirit is breaking free from the lie that your best days are behind you, say it out loud right where you are. Don't just think it. Speak it into existence. I say yes to the scroll. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your life depends on it, because it does. The breaking point isn't where you fall apart, it's where you break free. And freedom. Freedom has been waiting for you to stop making excuses and start making declarations. But what happens when you finally say yes to the scroll that's been sealed with your name? What happens when heaven's deployment orders are finally opened in your weathered hands? You feel it, don't you? That tremor running through your soul right now. That earthquake in your spirit that started the moment those angels stepped into your timeline. Your hands might be shaking. Your heart might be racing. Your mind might be reeling, trying to process what just happened to you. Listen to me, chosen one. You woke up this morning with the same eyes you've had for 8 decades, but now they see eternity. Everything looks different, doesn't it? The walls of your living room seem thinner. The veil between heaven and earth feels gossamer light. You're staring at the same furniture, the same pictures on your mantle, but suddenly you can see through them into something vast and eternal that was always there, hidden in plain sight. This isn't your imagination running wild. This isn't some emotional high that will fade by morning. You have just been spiritually upgraded. Your frequency has been adjusted to heaven's wavelength. And that disorientation you're feeling, that's not confusion, dear one. That's calibration. You're not tired. You're adjusting to heaven's frequency. Think about it. When astronauts return from space, they can't walk normally for days. Their inner ear, their balance, everything has to readjust to Earth's gravity. But you've just been to the throne room of the Almighty, And now you're trying to function in a world that suddenly feels too small, too slow, too temporary. The prophet Daniel experienced this exact phenomenon. After his angelic encounter in Daniel 10-8, he said, "I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless." But was Daniel weak? No. He was overwhelmed by the weight of divine glory pressing against his mortal frame. That's you right now. Overwhelmed, not broken. But here's where most people make a fatal mistake. They think this spiritual aftershock means they should sit down, rest, process, take it easy. They think God just gave them a beautiful experience to comfort their twilight years. Wrong. You're not retired. You've been reactivated. Stop right there. Look at me through this screen. At 75 years old, do you really think God gave you a divine visitation just so you could feel good about yourself? At 82, do you believe heaven mobilized 2 angels just to give you a spiritual pat on the head? No. That earthquake in your soul isn't the end of something, it's the beginning. That tremor you feel is the sound of your spiritual infrastructure being rebuilt for a load it's never carried before. God doesn't reactivate retired saints for vacation. He reactivates them for invasion. Moses was 80 when God called him from the burning bush. 80. The age when most people are complaining about their arthritis. Moses was standing before Pharaoh, demanding the freedom of 2 million slaves. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain," while younger men were making excuses. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But the enemy has been whispering lies to you for years, hasn't he? You're too old. Your time has passed. Let the young people handle ministry now. You've done your part. Those are not thoughts from heaven. Those are strategic deceptions designed to keep God's most experienced warriors on the bench when the battle is fiercest. There's a young soul 3 houses down from you that only your voice can reach. Think about that. 3 houses down, not 3,000 miles away, not across the ocean. 3 houses. Within walking distance of your front door, there's someone drowning in the exact same despair you conquered 40 years ago. There's someone facing the same addiction that once controlled you. There's someone dealing with the same broken marriage, the same financial ruin, the same spiritual emptiness that you survived by the grace of God. And they don't need a young pastor with smooth words and perfect theology. They need someone with scars, someone with gray hair, someone who smells like victory after walking through hell. They need you. Your wrinkles are your credentials. Your slow walk is the measured pace of someone who knows where they're going. Your trembling hands have been steadied by decades of holding on to God when everything else was shaking. Don't you dare die with that scroll sealed. This is your prophetic moment. This is your burning bush. This is your Damascus road. The scroll those angels brought isn't a retirement gift, it's a commissioning order. And if you think you can take it to your grave unopened, you're about to face the greatest regret eternity can hold. Imagine standing before the throne of God and having to explain why you kept his final assignment locked away. Imagine having to tell the Father why you chose comfort over calling, why you chose silence over salvation for others. The truth that's about to shatter your comfortable Christianity is this: you don't need a stage. You are the sanctuary. Your kitchen table has heard more honest prayers than most pulpits. Your living room has witnessed more genuine miracles than most church services. Your heart has become a holy place where God meets with broken people who trust you enough to let their masks fall off. Stop waiting for someone to hand you a microphone. Your voice is already equipped. Stop waiting for a platform. Your life is the platform. Stop waiting for a title. Your testimony is your ordination. Every neighbor who stops by for coffee is sitting in your sanctuary. Every grandchild who listens to your stories is receiving ministry. Every phone call from a friend in crisis is a divine appointment orchestrated from heaven's conference room. But here's what's about to blow your mind completely. Here's the revelation that changes everything about how you see your so-called golden years. You didn't grow old. You grew dangerous. Let that sink into the deepest chambers of your spirit. You didn't grow old. You grew dangerous. The enemy isn't afraid of your age. He's terrified of your experience. He's not concerned about your wrinkle. She's panicking about your wisdom. He's not worried about your slower paces, trembling at your unshakable faith. You survived the Great Depression and learned that God provides when the system fails. You lived through wars and discovered that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of God in the storm. You buried parents, spouses, friends, and learned that death is not the end of the story. You carry something no seminary can teach, and no young ministry can replicate: the authority of endurance. When you pray, hell listens differently. When you speak, the atmosphere shifts. When you declare God's faithfulness, generations of demons remember their defeat in your past battles. The spiritual aftershock you're experiencing right now isn't God patting you on the head. It's God loading you with ammunition for the final battle. It's God upgrading your spiritual operating system for assignments that will echo into eternity. But there's something else, something deeper, something that explains why this encounter had to happen now, in this season of your life, in this moment when you thought your story was winding down. The reason heaven sent 2 angels instead of 1. The reason this scroll has been sealed until now. The reason your spirit is shaking with recognition. It all connects to a truth so profound that understanding it will change how you spend every remaining day you have on this earth. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. I'm about to shatter every lie you've believed about your suffering. Why has your life been under siege since birth? Why did the cancer come at 57 when you finally found peace? Why did your husband's heart stop beating 3 days after your golden anniversary? Why did that phone call come at 2 in the morning telling you your son was never coming home? You thought it was random. You thought it was bad luck. You thought maybe you did something wrong. Maybe God was punishing you for sins you couldn't even remember committing. But what if I told you that every attack on your life was actually proof of something so powerful, so threatening to the kingdom of darkness, that hell itself had to mobilize against you? Hell never wastes its bullets on empty vessels. Think about it. The devil doesn't send his best demons after people who pose no threat. Satan doesn't orchestrate elaborate schemes to destroy ordinary lives. But you've been in his crosshairs since the day you drew your first breath. Remember when you were 8 years old and that fear gripped you in the middle of the night? That wasn't childhood anxiety. That was demonic recognition. Something in the darkness sensed what God had planted inside you, and it terrified them. You've been stalked in the spirit because what you carry terrifies the darkness. Every heart attack was an assassination attempt on your calling. Every depression was chemical warfare against your destiny. Every betrayal was a strategic strike against your faith. Every financial collapse was hell trying to starve out your assignment before it could fully manifest. This is not just pain. This is a prophecy. Let me say that again, louder this time, so it penetrates every cell in your body. This is not just pain. This is a prophecy. One more time, until it shakes the foundations of every lie you've believed about your suffering. This is not just pain. This is a prophecy. You see, the Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote in Ephesians 6:12, "We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." Paul knew something most believers never learn. The intensity of your warfare is directly proportional to the magnitude of your calling. Think about your life for a moment. Really think about it. How many times should you have died but didn't? How many nights did you cry yourself to sleep wondering if God had forgotten your name? How many funerals have you attended where you stood at the graveside thinking, why them and not me? The stroke that should have killed you at 73, the accident that should have taken you out at 68, the diagnosis that made doctors shake their heads and say, medically, there's no explanation for why you're still here. And yet, you're still here. Ever wonder why? Because every weapon formed against you has failed. Isaiah 54:17 declares it with thunderous authority, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. But here's what will shock you to your core. Here's the revelation that's going to change everything you thought you knew about your pain. The attack wasn't against your body, it was against your scroll. You see, dear one, before you were born, before your mother even knew she was carrying you, heaven wrote a scroll with your name on it. A divine assignment so powerful, so world-changing, that if it ever fully manifested, it would shift the spiritual atmosphere of your entire region. The enemy saw that scroll. He read your assignment. He saw your future impact. And he's been trying to kill you before you could step into it. Every time life knocked you down, you thought you were falling behind. But you were actually being positioned. Every time circumstances tried to break you, hell thought it was winning. But God was building something inside you that could only be forged in the furnace of adversity. Job understood this. When everything was stripped away from him, when his own wife told him to curse God and die, when his friends accused him of hidden sin, Job made a declaration that still echoes through eternity. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That wasn't desperation talking. That was a man who understood that his suffering wasn't random. It was strategic. God had pointed Job out to Satan and said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" Why? Because Job carried something so pure, so powerful, that hell had to test it to see if it was real. And you, precious one, you've been tested the same way. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. Not because God doesn't love you, but because he trusts you with assignments that would break lesser souls. The depression that tried to swallow you whole. That was hell trying to silence the voice that's about to speak life into dead situations. The betrayal that shattered your heart into a million pieces. That was darkness trying to make you distrust the very people you're called to love back to life. The loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone. That was the enemy trying to convince you that your assignment had been cancelled, that your season was over, that God had moved on without you. But listen to me carefully. Your survival isn't luck. Your endurance isn't stubbornness. Your ability to keep getting back up when everything in you wants to quit is proof that you carry something hell cannot touch, cannot kill, cannot steal. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a victor who's been disguised as a casualty. If this confirms what you've always suspected deep in your spirit, if something inside you is finally saying, "Yes, that's why my life has been so hard," then type it in the comments right now. I was hunted because I'm holy. Because, beloved, understanding why you've been under attack is only the beginning. What you're about to discover next will reveal exactly what you've been carrying that made hell so afraid. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. 2,000 years ago, there was a night when even the Son of God fell to his knees in agony, the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus, the Word made flesh. The light of the world was so overwhelmed by what was coming that Luke 22:44 tells us his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Even the Son of God needed angels to strengthen him before the cross. And tonight you got two. But here's what's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your pain. While Jesus was bleeding in that garden, crying out, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me," he wasn't just praying for himself. He was interceding for you. For this moment, for this night when you'd be sitting exactly where you are, wondering if God has forgotten your name. You didn't ask for rescue. Jesus interceded for you. Think about this, really, think about it. In the darkest hour of human history, when the weight of every sin that would ever be committed was crushing down on the Savior of the world, your name was on his lips, your address was in his prayer, your future was in his plea. The blood cried out your name when your voice fell silent. Every night you've laid in that bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you're still here. Every morning you've woken up feeling empty, forgotten, cast aside. Every moment you've questioned if your life has any meaning left. Jesus was already fighting for this moment, not in some distant heaven, but right there in Gethsemane, sweating blood for your breakthrough. There was a meeting in heaven about you. And Jesus didn't vote, he volunteered. Picture that war council. The Father, knowing what was required. The Spirit, ready to empower. And Jesus looking at your file, seeing every year you'd struggle, every tear you'd cry, every night you'd feel abandoned and saying, "I'll take the cross for that one. I'll carry the nails for their freedom." You didn't just survive, you were preserved. Every heart attack that should have taken you out, preserved. Every accident that could have ended it all, preserved. Every moment of despair when you wanted to give up, you were preserved. You didn't just survive, you were preserved. Not by accident, not by luck, by divine intervention that was purchased with blood in a garden 2 millennia before you were born. You didn't just survive, you were preserved. The enemy has been whispering lies to you for decades. You're too old, you're too broken, you've made too many mistakes. God's done with people like you. But what if I told you that every scar on your soul, every wound in your heart, every year you thought was wasted, was actually building something? You thought your pain disqualified you, but in heaven, it promoted you. While you've been sitting in shame, heaven has been preparing your commission. While you've been counting your failures, God has been counting your faithfulness. While you've been writing your obituary, the Almighty has been writing your assignment. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul tonight. Those 2 angels standing in your presence right now. They didn't come just to comfort you. They came to activate you for something that requires every ounce of wisdom your suffering has produced. The question burning in the heart of heaven is this: will you finally understand why you were preserved? Or will you die wondering what could have been? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will cut deeper than any surgeon's blade. But healing only comes when infection is exposed. There are chains you didn't know were there. For 70, 80, 90 years, you've been walking through life thinking you were free. You made your own choices, lived your own life, followed your own path. But what if I told you that every major decision you've made, every door you didn't walk through, every dream you abandoned, every time you said, "I can't" instead of "I will," was influenced by invisible shackles wrapped around your soul? These aren't physical chains, beloved. These are something far more sinister. Invisible agreements, trauma-coded loops, emotional residue from 1964 when your father told you that you'd never amount to anything, from 1987 when that doctor said you had 6 months to live, and even though you survived, part of you believed you were living on borrowed time, from 2020 when the world shut down, and suddenly you felt like you didn't matter anymore. The chains weren't around your wrists, they were around your decisions. Think about it. When was the last time you dreamed a big dream without immediately hearing a voice whisper, "At your age"? When was the last time you felt called to do something significant without that familiar weight settling on your chest, telling you to sit down, stay quiet, act your age? What voices have you silently agreed with? I'm talking about the voice that convinced you retirement meant spiritual retirement. The voice that whispered that God only uses young people for important assignments. The voice that made you believe that your best chapters were written in your 20s and 30s, not your 70s and 80s. When did you accept being too old to matter as a spiritual truth? Because that's not God's voice, dear one. That's the voice of limitation. That's the enemy's greatest weapon against the chosen. Not temptation, not addiction, not even doubt. It's the lie that says your time has passed. Look at Moses in Exodus 7:7. The Bible tells us he was 80 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. 80. The world would have put him in a nursing home, but God was just getting started with him. Sarah was 90 when she conceived Isaac. 90. And yet Genesis 21:6 records her laughter, not the bitter laugh of someone who's given up, but the joyful laugh of someone who finally understands that God's timing isn't man's timing. But the enemy has been whispering in your ear for decades, hasn't he? He's convinced you that your arthritis disqualifies you from God's service, that your slower pace means you're out of the race, that your wrinkles are a sign of decline rather than a crown of wisdom. These are the chains, beloved. Invisible agreements you made in moments of pain, disappointment, and societal pressure. You agreed that your value decreased with your age. You agreed that influence belongs to the young. You agreed that your season of significance was over. But Romans 11:29 declares that God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. Did you catch that? Irrevocable. Not subject to your birth certificate, not cancelled by your Medicare card, not expired because you collect Social Security. The enemy knows something about you that you've forgotten about yourself. He knows that a believer with 70 years of proven faithfulness is the most dangerous weapon in God's arsenal. So he's spent decades building invisible prison walls around your identity, your worth, your sense of purpose. Every time you've said, "I'm too old for that," another link was added to the chain. Every time you've stepped aside because someone younger could do it better, the chain grew stronger. Every time you've believed the lie that your best days are behind you, the shackles tightened. But tonight, right now, in this sacred moment, the angel with the sword is standing in your living room, and he didn't come to comfort your chains, he came to shatter them. Isaiah 61:1 prophesies, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners." Freedom for the captives. That's you, chosen one. You've been held captive not by bars and walls, but by beliefs and whispers and agreements you made with limitation. But tonight, those chains snap like paper in the presence of the sword. Can you feel it? That strange lightness in your chest, that sense that something heavy you've carried for decades is suddenly gone. That's not your imagination, that's liberation. The angel's sword doesn't cut flesh, it cuts lies. It severs agreements. It breaks covenants you made with defeat. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not too tired. You are not forgotten. You are not irrelevant. Every one of those whispers was a chain link, and every chain link is now scattered on the floor of your spirit like dust. If something just broke off your life, if you can feel invisible weight lifting from your shoulder stipe, I feel it snapping. Because what's happening to you right now is just the beginning. The chains are broken, but now you need to discover what was hidden underneath them all along. Dear chosen one, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now. Put down that cup of coffee, turn off that television, because what I'm about to show you will explain why you've felt incomplete your entire life. There is a locked room in your soul you haven't visited in 37 years. I know that sounds impossible. You think you know every corner of your own heart, every memory, every wound, every victory. But listen to me carefully. There's a chamber in your spirit that was sealed the day you decided you weren't enough. The day you accepted the world's definition of who you were instead of heaven's declaration of who you are. You remember that moment, don't you? Maybe you were 7 years old, standing in your father's shadow, hearing him say you'd never amount to anything. Maybe you were 17, watching your first love walk away, whispering lies about your worth. Maybe you were 47, getting passed over for that promotion again, finally believing you were ordinary. That's when the door closed. That's when you walked away from the room where your real name is written. But tonight, right now, the angels didn't just come to rescue you from your circumstances. They came to escort you back to the room you abandoned. Because in that room, beneath the dust of decades, beneath the cobwebs of disappointment, your true identity is still glowing like a flame that refuses to die. Close your eyes. I'm going to take you there. You're standing at the end of a long hallway in your soul. The walls are lined with everything you've carried for decades. On your left, the regrets. Those chances you didn't take. Those words you should have spoken. That business you should have started. That calling you should have answered. They're hanging there like old photographs, faded but still stinging. On your right, the disappointments. The prayers that seemed unanswered. The dreams that died before they could breathe. The people who walked away when you needed them most. The diagnoses that stole your strength. The funerals that stole your hope. Keep walking, past the voices that said you were too old, past the mirrors that reflected failure instead of potential, past the empty chairs where loved ones used to sit. There, do you see it? At the end of the hallway, there's a door. It's different from all the others. This one is glowing. Warm light spills from underneath, light that doesn't flicker, doesn't fade, doesn't depend on circumstances or seasons or whether anyone else believes in you. Why have you avoided this door for 37 years? Because you've been afraid of what you might find. Afraid that your real name might demand more than you think you can give. Afraid that your true calling might require more faith than you think you possess. But here's what will shock you to your core: you weren't asking God to speak louder all these years. He was waiting for you to come unlock the door. Every unanswered prayer wasn't God's silence, it was His patience. Every closed door in your life wasn't His rejection, it was His redirection toward this door, this room, this moment when you'd finally be desperate enough to remember who you really are. Psalm 139:16 declares, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Before you took your first breath, before you made your first mistake, before you believed your first lie about yourself, God wrote your real name in the book of life. And that name, that identity, that calling has been waiting in this room. But I know what you're thinking. It's too late. I'm 83 years old. That room belongs to someone I used to be, someone I could have been. Stop right there. That's the enemy's final attempt to keep you from your breakthrough. Age is not a disqualification in God's kingdom, it's qualification. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Sarah was 90 when she birthed the impossible. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your wrinkles aren't evidence of decline, they're proof of endurance. Your grey hair isn't a sign of fading, it's a crown of wisdom. Your slower step isn't weakness, it's the measured walk of someone who's learned that destination matters more than speed. In that room, dear one, your husband's last words still echo. Not the labored breathing, not the goodbye, but that moment 3 months before he passed when he looked at you and said, "You were always stronger than you knew." Your mother's last touch still lives in that room. Not her frail hand in the hospital bed, but her strong fingers braiding your hair when you were 7, whispering, "You're going to do great things, baby girl." But here's what will break your heart wide open. Your calling lives in that room too. Unmarked by time, untouched by failure, undiminished by the lies you've believed about yourself. That calling is still breathing, still burning, still waiting for you to remember that God doesn't make mistakes, and He doesn't waste His chosen ones. The enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that the room is empty, that your real name was erased by your failures, that your calling expired with your youth. But 2 Timothy 1-9 declares that God saved us and called us to a holy life, not because of anything we have done, but because of His own purpose and grace. Your calling wasn't based on your performance, it was based on His purpose. And His purpose doesn't have an expiration date. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something is stirring in that room. Can you feel it? That flutter in your chest isn't your heart medication, it's recognition. Your soul remembering what it felt like before the world convinced you to settle for less than your destiny. The door isn't locked anymore. The angels brought the key, but you have to choose to turn the handle. You have to choose to step into the room where your real name glows like fire on the walls. You have to choose to believe that 83 years of preparation has led to this moment of activation. If you're ready to stop living as an echo of who you used to be and start living as the roar of who you were always meant to be, if you're ready to walk into the room where your true identity has been, waiting comment right now. I'm entering now, because what's behind that door will explain everything. Why has your life been so hard? Why ordinary contentment has never satisfied you? Why, even now, something in you refuses to fade quietly into the background? The room is open. Your real name is calling. But will you answer before the window closes? Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of these sacred 21 minutes together, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you, like precious jewels in your heart. First, remember this: you are not too old, too late, or too forgotten. The angels didn't come to comfort your decline, they came to announce your deployment. That room in your soul isn't a museum of what was, it's a launching pad for what's coming. Every year you've lived, every year you've shed, every battle you've fought has been preparing you for this moment when heaven says, "Now, this is your time." Second, that scroll the angel carries isn't blankets written with your name, your assignment, your divine appointment with destiny. The same God who called Moses at 80, who blessed Sarah at 90, who used Anna the prophetess at 84, is the same God breathing purpose into your lungs right now. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Third, those 21 minutes weren't just a countdown, they were a divine invitation. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. Heaven intercepted your timeline because your breakthrough moment has arrived. The spiritual sedation, the positioning, the preparation, it's all been leading to this awakening. But hear me clearly, precious soul. You are not walking this path alone. Even when the silence feels overwhelming, even when loneliness presses against your chest like a stone, even when you wonder if anyone sees your faithfulness, the Creator of the universe is working behind the scenes of your life. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, orchestrating connections you can't imagine. Romans 8:28 isn't just a verse, it's your reality. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. And beyond God's presence, you have something beautiful right here. Look at these comments flowing in. See these hearts connecting. Feel these spirits resonating with your own. You found your tribe, chosen one. This isn't just a YouTube channel. This is a sanctuary where wounded healers gather, where forgotten ones remember their worth, where the spiritually sedated finally wake up to their calling. We are here. We see you. We understand the weight you carry. We know the battles you fought in silence. And we will stand with you in prayer, believing with you for breakthrough, interceding with you for the miracles your heart has been crying out for. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that you know the door to that sacred room is open, now that you understand the angels have been waiting, now that you've heard your real name echoing from eternity, what will you do with this revelation? Will you step boldly into the room, or will you let fear convince you to stay in the hallway? Before I release you into your destiny, I want you to do something. Share in the comments below what God spoke to your heart in these 21 minutes. Don't hold back. Your testimony might be the key that unlocks someone else's prison. Ask us to pray for specific areas where you need breakthroughs. Let this community surround you with intercession and love. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. There's a person in your life right now, maybe a friend, a family member, a neighbor who's been sitting in their own hallway, believing the lie that their best days are over. They need to know about the room in their soul. They need to understand that angels are waiting. They need to hear that it's never too late for God to do something beautiful. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, your greatest chapter is still unwritten. If this isn't your first time here, you know how God moves through this community. If you're new, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of chosen ones who gather here weekly to be reminded of their worth, their calling, their divine assignment. We're building something beautiful together, a place where age is honored, where experience is treasured, where the forgotten ones finally remember who they are. Now, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has seen God's faithfulness for 5 decades. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, the Ancient of Days who holds time in His hands, I come before you now carrying every precious soul who has watched this message. Father, they've heard the angels calling. They've seen the door to that sacred room. They felt something stirring in their spirit that's been asleep for far too long. Lord, breathe fresh life into their weary bones. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are engraved on your palms. Where they feel too old, show them that their finest hour is still ahead. Where they feel useless, reveal the assignment you've been saving for this very season of their lives. God, open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they didn't know existed. Send divine connections that will astound them. Give them dreams and visions that will clarify their next steps. Surround them with people who see their value, who honor their wisdom, who will walk alongside them without trying to dim their light. Heal their bodies, Lord. Restore their minds. Revive their spirits. Let them wake up tomorrow, knowing they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and destined for greatness beyond their wildest imagination. And Father, Let this message ripple out like stones thrown into still water. Let their transformation become a testimony. Let their breakthrough become hope for the hopeless. Use their not quite finished stories to remind this world that you're still writing miracles. In Jesus' mighty name, who wore a crown of thorns so they could wear crowns of glory, I seal this prayer. Let your will be done in their lives, Lord. Let your kingdom come through their surrendered hearts.